The Joyful Friar podcast is made possible by the generous support of our friends. To support the podcast, please visit nathan-castle.com and donate today. Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Joyful Friar podcast. I'm Father Nathan Castle, your host. Last week's podcast we called the Not So Joyful Friar um, because I had to deal with the fact that my beloved um, dog Toto had died the day before. And my friend Donna Rebido, who's a great person and great dog lover, helped me craft a podcast just to kind of talk through some of the issues of grieving the loss of uh, a loved one who happens to be uh, a pet. Consequent to that, there have been so many expressions of condolence and kindness that I just want to thank you. If you were one of those who said a prayer for me and Toto, and or sent an email or a message on Facebook or YouTube, um, it's been quite consoling. It's still something to process. Father Richard, who is Toto's owner, he's my best friend of 45 years. We haven't um, interred his cremains yet. We have them back from the vet, and we'll do that sometime soon. But that's still colored my life for the last week and a half, and doing that podcast did kind of disrupt the flow that we ordinarily have. That is, we tell a story in a trilogy, and we have already done parts one and two of a trilogy about Counselor Jean. So we told the story and then we did a compassionate response to that story. Today's theme is spiritual practice that emerges from the story of Counselor Jean. That's what we'll do today. If you don't know that story already, you might want to go back and find those episodes and listen to them before this one. But in short, I received in a dream a scene of a person, a professional going to a professional conference, arriving in the lobby of the conference hotel in the process of getting registered among a bunch of other people when shots rang out and the man was hit. As he was falling to the floor, he was saying, "God bless them, God bless them, God bless them." And I woke up. Well, when we went into protected prayer with the angels and saints, my prayer partners and I got to get acquainted with Counselor Gene. That's what we're calling him. He was, I don't know if he was a psychotherapist or uh, psychiatrist, certified counselor of some kind. He did counseling as his profession. And the conference that he was at was one of several annual conventions of people in that field where they came together to learn about new research that might help them be better at their work. He also, I've been professionally involved in my occupation and my vocation, and I know that it's true that when you go to those things frequently, you have friends that you meet with that you only see at these conventions. And he was looking forward to being in the company of professional colleagues who he had friendly relations with from previous such conferences. Well, this is focused around a spiritual practice that might arise after becoming familiar with Counselor Jean's story. The thing that is stuck in my mind is what preceded that moment of his death. He died almost instantly, he told us, but there was a moment of falling to the ground and realizing that he'd been shot. And his response was, "God bless them, God bless them, God bless them." He was talking about the person who shot him. How does one live one's life to be able to arrive at such a moment of being murdered and carry that off with such grace without anger or thoughts of recrimination or um, self-concern, why me, all the other ways that a person could have responded to that event, how did he get to be a person who just got fatally wounded with gunshots? How did he become a person who fell to the ground saying, God bless them, God bless them, God bless them? He told us that the years that he had been involved in his counseling work, that it had a sacredness about it because very wounded people allow you to touch their wounds. They 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 open themselves to your healing charism, craft, and trust that they can share some of their darkest or most painful areas, and that you might hold them sacred and help a person move past anything that's holding them back. So, compassion, empathy, respect for a whole person, even if the details they're telling you about a portion of their life are uh, things that cause them shame, that you respect them anyway. You see the goodness in them. Because I'm a Catholic priest, I lead uh, public worship at the beginning of a Catholic Mass after the opening song, and we're just kind of getting settled in. We start in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. We bless ourselves and we address ourselves to the Father, Son, and Spirit. And the first thing that we do is collectively pause, reflect a bit on our lives, and then ask for mercy. I am in front of congregations that don't see me on a weekly basis because I don't work in just one church as I did for much of my life. So as I float around and am with different peoples, I very often pause to remind them that the word mercy is related to merchandise, mercantile, mercado, that it has to do with a transaction between persons. That when you ask somebody for mercy, you owe them a debt. You did something to devalue yourself in their presence by the way you acted or spoke. Now you regret that and you go back and ask for mercy. When you do that, you're saying, I know that I have worth. I know that I have value that's built into me from my creator. You wouldn't know it from the way I behaved because I devalued myself in your presence. Would you look at me and see my value and not my disgrace? So um, I think that's important because asking for mercy doesn't involve groveling. It doesn't involve low self-esteem. It just involves a recognition that sometimes I speak or act in ways that are beneath me, but I can rise above that. And with your help, if you would have mercy on me for this particular offense, whatever it was, uh, there are better times ahead. And then after that, we go into the rest of the Mass, and that only takes a few minutes right at the front end. But one of the things that you hear sometimes people have been chased away or felt chased away from Christian churches, probably other religious groupings too. But I know in my place, uh, very often people have been had some experience of church in their past where they felt judged and unwelcome, or they would be unwelcome if you knew more about them, knew their secrets, the way a counselor might. Um, and sometimes people will say, well, I don't go to church because it's just full of hypocrites. Well, hypokrites is a Greek word, it means under a mask, like an actor or actress under a mask. It's just full of hypocrites, people under a mask. Well, there's an old joke that the reply to that is, well, it's not full of hypocrites. There's usually room, and we'll make room for you. We'll all scoot over. But asking for mercy at the front end and doing it and meaning it can take away some of that hypocrisy, that needing to be under a mask. If you come forward with a heart that is truly wants to acknowledge that you have demeaned yourself in some way, but you know that you're redeemable. You just ask for mercy, and if you receive it gratefully, then you go on. Well, that's where I'd like to begin here. But back to that question, how did Counselor Gene become that guy? How did he become a person who was so um, concerned about others, even the other who just was ending his life? I don't know, but I can at least share with you how I try to be like Counselor Gene. I just keep coming back to this idea that if you followed my podcast, you'll have heard this before. I come back to the idea of am I a part of the universe, uni meaning one. The universe means the one turning, this whole spiraling galaxies and cosmos, this whole enormous mystery that we're a part of. Am I a part of that one, or am I apart from it? Am I embedded in the fabric of the universe, or am I some speck lost in the universe? I believe that the universe's creator created me, and that I didn't just emerge because of a consequence of unrelated events down through space and time, accidents of chemicals banging into one another, whatever. I believe that I was intentionally brought into being out of love because the creator had an idea. I remember my first grade teacher saying, "Children, the universe was really pretty good before you got here. But God is so creative, and creative people never stop creating. They keep looking for another way to create a next thing, to make a thing better." My parents instilled that in me, that it was always my responsibility to leave a place better than I found it. There's no reason why you can't do that. And I believe that's true. But am I a part of all that is, or apart from all that is? The first one is unitive thinking. One, I'm a part of all that is. The second is dualism. I'm apart from all that is. I'm me and not you. And I believe that just creates loneliness, and it makes life harder. It presumes distance between me and everything and everyone I encounter, rather than what I believe is the actuality, that I'm inside of God because God is everywhere and I'm somewhere. I'm inside of God. I'm a part of God, not apart from God. When I address God in prayer, I don't feel like I need to send some long distance signal of some kind. I just need to knock on my heart, close my eyes and take a few deep breaths and say, "Hello in there. I want to talk to you because I'm a part of you already and you're a part of me." Somehow I think Counselor Gene operated that way. He didn't get shot by somebody um, apart from him, but some wounded soul that he felt compassion for, even though he didn't know who it was, and was blessing them with his final breaths. I think that's very Christ-like. Jesus did that from the cross. "Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing." Well, then, if you want to be more like that, how would you go about it? Well, one thing is to make up your mind. I want that. And I believe it's true. I believe that I am a part of all that is, and that God created only good. It's true that there are bad actors, people who have lost their way, who have somehow fallen into uh, bad habits or behaviors, and sometimes we need to make ourselves safe by uh, keeping away from uh, injurious people, but we don't need to hate them. We can simply ask a blessing over them like Gene did as he was dying. One of the ways that I try to do that is I don't think that if you aspire to be more like that, I want to be more like Gene. I want to be a person who is that um, compassionate or that at peace with himself in his own skin. I don't think that's a matter of trying to become something I'm not. I mean, I'm looking out over the camera here is the University of Arizona. I'm facing the campus. And part of acquiring an education is becoming what you're not. I'm not a doctor, but I'd like to go to medical school and learn how to be one. And then when I graduate, they'll make me one. I did that, by becoming a priest. It was something I aspired to and worked toward. But I also learned along the way that, in my case, the charism of being a priest didn't get conferred on me at a ceremony. It grew from within me gracefully because I went into a community of people who would help me become this and model it for me and coach me day by day over a number of years. And part of, I think, what Gene became, yes, he got skills to be good at his craft, and he was at a conference where he wanted to improve those skills. But I think what might have made it possible for him to be that large of heart as he was dying was something from within. I don't think that can be taught from the front of a classroom or a lecture hall. He had to learn that he had a gift that he had developed to be able to help very wounded people heal and come home to themselves. Over my shoulder is my, Wizard of Oz book and Toto too. That's really the genius of that story is that everybody in it who thinks that they lack something has it to begin with, at least a little. And then it just needs to grow and it needs experiences and time to grow. So, so how do you become somebody that's at home in your own skin so much that um, you could bless someone who would just shot you? I don't know, but here's what I think. Start the day with some sort of spiritual practice that doesn't mean diving into the morning news or just routines like coffee and showering and dressing for work or whatever. Starting with some quietude, at least 5 minutes, 7, 10 minutes of being still. I like to sit next to a plant, and I'm recording this at the very beginning of fall in Arizona, where I'm being able to be next to a plant without being in broiling heat. Um, I suppose you can do that with indoor plants too. Sit next to a green plant because it's going to give you oxygen that it has just cast off, and you can give it carbon dioxide that you don't need. And the two of you can nourish each other while you just sit still and remember that I'm in a place that is designed for me and I belong in it. I belong in the universe. Even though there might be faraway places and foreign lands and stuff, there's a way in which I belong everywhere because I'm a member of the universe. I'm part of the oneness and not just the separation. That really is just a frame of mind that one can just call to mind. And the more that you do it, the easier it will get. I'm here, I'm home. At the end of The Wizard of Oz, that's really the line where Dorothy is back in her bed and everybody's been worried over her because we thought we were going to lose her. And she said, well, that's just it. I was gone for days and days and I had all these adventures and I met all these people. See, it was, some of it wasn't very nice, but most of it was beautiful. Don't you believe me? Well, they really don't. They think she's delirious, but they're happy that she's back. Well, she doesn't have to be understood by everybody to know that she's loved. That's important to me. I'm quite an unusual man, and I don't think it's fair of me to demand that everyone understand me for me to be at peace. What do you think about that? Can you be understood by someone or maybe a few people and let that be enough? Gene just seemed to have a capacity to live in his own skin that I admire. and I'd like to deepen that in my own life. Um, he did mention that he did have a few moments subsequent to his leaving of the body where he did wonder, well, like he was in the wrong place at the wrong time, and if only he had taken a different cab from the airport, those kind of things. Had he paused here or there, would he have been in the line of a bullet that was pretty random, wasn't intended for him specifically? Well, he did a little bit of that. And then he just said, but I knew better than to indulge that kind of thinking for very long. It's better to stay in the present moment and deal with the present circumstance. Well, that's wise counsel. It's probably why he was good at his job. So that can be important if you tend to have a lot of regrets or what ifs or about the past, or if you project those kind of things into the future. Um, it's slippery sand. It's just it's not that's not helpful when you recognize that you're doing that. I just say, nope, I'm not doing that. I'd rather be in the present moment, be grateful for the present gifts, ask for my daily bread is one of the ways that Christians phrase that in the Lord's Prayer. Ask for what you need today and trust that you'll have it, or that you already have part of what you think you don't, and go on. So I might be repeating myself, but I don't think trying to be as at peace in your heart as Gene was even as he was dying, I don't think it's beyond your power. I think it's inside you already. It's just a matter of welcoming it. One thing that I do sometimes is I believe God is love. God doesn't have component parts. He's not made of Legos or cells or anything else. God just is love. And to commune with God is to love and to receive love, magnify love, give love. That's my little mantra. So sometimes, especially if I'm feeling that I'm moving towards dualism, the us and them of our contemporary politics, for example, is a very easy way to be drawn into that. Or living in community as I do. If you've had roommates or live in a house with anybody else, there are times when you're frustrated at some little thing that somebody said or did and feeling like you're not a part of them because you oppose them on something. Well, yeah, but that's just momentary and passing. The truth is, I belong to everyone, and everyone belongs to me. And then I just need to make my peace somehow with whatever the issue of the moment might be. I just try to sit still sometimes, and if I find my spirit feeling upset and roiled, I just sit still. One thing that I'll sometimes do is sit with my hands in front of me open with my palms up like I'm receiving a gift. It's better than the kind of clenched teeth or clenched fist of oppositional energy. Just having hands open. I think it's a Latin from the Roman Catholic tradition called the orans position, the let us pray position. And when I was learning how to say mass, you have to uh, the screen is a little tight for this, but you have to hold your hands up. You say, "The Lord be with you," and you are graded on whether your fingertips they should be about at the same height, uh, and you'd be graded down if they were a little off kilter. The Lord be with you. Well, anyway, I'll sit with my hands open and just breathe deeply from the diaphragm. When I do that, I put my the soles of my feet on the flat on the ground. That reminds me that I'm attached to the earth and I'm made of its elements. I try to sit mostly up straight, not rigidly so, but where the core of my body, where my breathing is connected well with my pulmonary system, my heart, lungs, uh, and just breathe. And not necessarily be thinking of anything, just allowing my body to breathe in my surroundings and take in the nutrition that it needs, to expire, to breathe out what's not good. If I'm holding on to some sort of resentment or anger or deprivation of some kind. I've had to do a little more of that this week because of fresh grief of having the little dog that I loved die pretty unexpectedly. There's been times when I've been given over to the sadness that comes with grief, and I don't feel I need to eradicate that because it has its own sense of belonging. But it does come a point where I have work to do, and I don't want to spend all morning being unproductive because I'm sad about the loss of a loved pet. I need to acknowledge that and let it be, but to let it take its turn and not dominate. So I've had to practice what I preach a little more this week and say, okay, go ahead and be sad for the next 10 minutes, the next 30 minutes. Or then I might have to strategize and say, okay, I don't really have the focus I need to do that task on my list that needs focused attention, but that doesn't mean I couldn't sweep the floor. That doesn't mean I couldn't get a load of laundry on. That doesn't mean I can't create a shopping list. So sometimes I'll feel like I don't have the full energy that I would like to have to do this and that and the other thing, but that doesn't mean I can't do something productive that I can look at and say, wow, that floor looks much better than it did before I swept it. That might be getting kind of granular into a lot of detail, but doesn't life have a lot of that in it, where if you're going to be at peace, um, somehow it just involves um, releasing, letting go of things that sadden or aggravate. And to me, an open-handed gesture helps me do that. It just reminds me I don't want to cling. You know, Gene didn't cling to anger about having been shot and killed. He kind of went with it. Uh, you might think, well, what choice do you have when you've just been shot and killed? But I know better. My prayer partners and I have dealt with lots of people who've been through violent death, including murder, and some of them really do uh, cling to anger and other kinds of emotions that end up kind of getting them tangled. I don't want that for them or for you. I don't think the spiritual practices that for me emerge from the story of Counselor Gene are complex. They're just a matter of spiritual practice, of doing a thing until you get better at it. And I'll bet in his backstory, he had some spiritual practice that he returned to. For one thing, I don't think a counselor could spend the entire day with an appointment calendar listening to the woundedness of human beings and who wounded them and what that story is without being able to detox. I was in psychotherapy in my 20s, and I was with a priest, psychotherapist, with the 50-minute hour. And, I'd arrive early enough in the waiting room that I was prompt and on time. Um, but sometimes his door would be open from the waiting room, and you could see him. He was in a rocking chair with his prayer book. And so he was taking about 5 minutes of prayer between appointments so that he was, I think, turning loose of what just happened in the previous hour and trying to make himself as available as he could to me. I don't, that's what I observed and thought anyway. And I try to do something like that to not let um, anything that, especially anything that's troubling or worrisome from previous events, uh, like the death of a loved one, clog up the whole day. You know, that's just where I am right now. That's why I keep going back to that. But I believe that you're capable of growing into uh, the stature of what we saw of Counselor Gene at the time of his death, to be able to offer a blessing, come what may, for whatever kind of behavior comes at you, to offer a blessing. St. Paul said to offer a blessing for a curse. I do that sometimes in the car. If anybody flips me off because of some traffic thing, I don't give a hand gesture back to them because they might misinterpret it. But below the dashboard, I do this. You know, I don't know why you're so troubled over some little incursion on the road, but God bless you, whatever it is. I've done that for a long time. Well, I wanted to comment on one last thing. When it came time for him to do his crossing, we always ask people, do you know who you'd like to have come for you? And he said, I could have called on Carl Jung. He could have done that, some luminary in his field, but instead his heart went out to one of his previous counselees who died young, and he wondered, if and she died of lupus, and he was wondering about autoimmune disease and is any part of it related to it's is psychosomatic? Is there something he could have done as a counselor to foster healing of her lupus? And he brought that with him into the afterlife. I wonder if I could have done more. And he was greeted by his this counselee, but a version of her that he knew at a glance was no longer ill. So he got to see the whole healed person that he never got to see because she was never whole and healed before her passing. That was why she was coming to him. But he had been an active agent in her healing for a long time, and she showed up as kind of a thank you and an affirmation that the goal of getting me to full health has been achieved. I'm fully healthy, and I would like to help you along now to kind of repay that. So I thought that was real sweet. That there, it might be um, uh, good to call to mind once in a while that you might have actually had um, a positive impact on somebody along the line. One of the things Jesus told us is that there's going to come a day when you're going to say, what the Lord said, the least, what you do to the least of your brothers and sisters, you do to me. I'm embedded in them, and however you treat each other, you're treating me in that same way. And he said something like, there's going to come a day when you're going to say, but when did we see you hungry and feed you? When did we see you naked and clothe you? When did we see you unhoused and give you lodging? Um, and because we forgot, we did we did positive things that we don't even remember having done. Conversely, when did we ignore an opportunity to do good in all these ways? When did we do that? Well, it might be good from time to time to replay in your mind any positive affirmations you got from other people, where somebody says to you, "You made an impact in my life for the good, and I want you to know it." Um, do you do it that ever? Um, do you ever have cards or correspondence, even emails or little gifts or something where somebody said, "I really value you, and here's why," and here's a sentiment, something in writing or a token. I have kept over my priesthood uh, a few little collections of such things, especially for a bad night. Uh, Once in a while, I'll go to a few little keepsake boxes where I will go back over stuff that I've even forgotten, where somebody said, "You did something good, and we're grateful or love you." So I would recommend that too. That's a way to nurture kind of strength of spirit when you feel depleted. That somebody's grateful for you, and calling that back to mind can be a boost. And that's what happened for Gene when he thought of the person he'd like to meet. It was because he felt like maybe he hadn't helped her as much as he could have. That was his motive for seeing her. And then when he did see her, boom, that didn't even matter. She was whole, healthy, and happy, and grateful that she had the opportunity to return the favor a little bit and help him out. Well, I'm going to leave it at that. That's the wind up of this particular story of Counselor Gene and the spiritual practice that might arise from getting to know his story a little bit. So as I end this episode, I want to remind you that I pray for you regularly, and when I do, I ask the Holy Spirit. First of all, I don't think of you as apart from me. I think of me as a part of you, and you as a part of me, and all of creation of us being a part of all that is. And I speak inside what I call the body of Christ, and that big organism that is the universe. And I say, would you go to the place in this particular person, I'm talking about you, where there might be the seed of some woundedness that has consequences that flow from it? Could we go to the origin of where there's disturbance of some kind of something that doesn't really belong, that could go away, melt, dissolve? heal. That's what I do. I pray that for you. So again, if you'd like to be in touch with me, uh, I don't do sequential counseling, but if there's something that I can do in the short run with one conversation, I welcome that. I ask that if you request that of me, that you first read one of my Afterlife books first, um, because that would give us a better basis for a conversation that might follow. So um, I guess that's it for now. This is Father Nathan Castle, the Joyful Friar, thanking you for being with me and hoping that we'll be together again. God bless you. Bye bye.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of The Joyful Friar. Please like, follow, and subscribe. You can visit me at nathan-castle.com. Send me a message by clicking the contact button. God bless. Have you ever had to do something so difficult that you had to deal with it in stages? Imagine dying suddenly with no forewarning, being in a car crash, a shooting, a drowning. You leave your body, but then what? How do you transition into the afterlife? For some, it flows all at once, but not for everybody. For some, the process of transitioning into the afterlife is interrupted. Maybe there's a need for rest or for learning, or maybe just the chance to adjust to such an abrupt experience. I'm Father Nathan Castle. I'm a Catholic priest. About 23 years ago, the Holy Spirit began to send me people who had died traumatically. They entered my dreams during sleep, showing me what had happened to them and asking for help. They had died and moved on, sort of, but they'd come to a moment where it was time to complete the crossing. With the help of the angels and saints and earthly prayer partners, we've assisted more than 300 souls as they complete their crossing. You can read about it in my book series. Afterlife Interrupted books are available on Amazon. You can also learn more by visiting my website, nathan-castle.com. God bless you.